Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about something called culture shock. You know that totally disorienting feeling you get when you're dropped into a new environment? And to really get our heads around it, we're going to look at a fascinating study about missionaries. But you're going to see this experience is way more universal than you might think.
All right, so to kick things off, let's jump right into a story from the source material that just perfectly sums up what we're talking about.
So, meet Dunjis Ajun. He's a missionary from the Dayak tribe, and he's working with the Toraja people over in Indonesia. Now, where he comes from, if someone younger than you just calls you kamu, which literally just means you, it's a huge sign of disrespect. Super rude. But here's the thing. In the Toraja culture, it was completely normal. It was actually polite. So you have this one little word creating this massive, invisible wall of misunderstanding.
That whole experience Don Axios had with that one word, that's a perfect snapshot of a much bigger thing. It's that jarring moment when all the unwritten social rules you've lived by your entire life just suddenly don't apply anymore.
So what is really going on there, under the surface? What is the actual shock in culture shock?
Well, an anthropologist named Kalervo Oberg really nailed it. He defined it as the anxiety that results from losing all of our familiar signs and symbols. Think about it. All the little cues you rely on, like how to greet someone or what's funny or how close to stand, they're all gone. It's like your social GPS just goes offline, and that feeling of being totally lost, that's the shock.
And listen, this is not just a little bit of discomfort. The research we're looking at shows the psychological toll is very, very real. A whopping 62% of the missionaries in the study reported feeling actual anxiety or depression during their adjustment. I mean, that's a huge number. It just goes to show how deeply this can hit us.
And all that internal stress, it has to go somewhere, right? It ends up showing itself on the outside. We're not just talking about feeling a little homesick. The study points to a whole list of symptoms, from loneliness and not being able to sleep to even real physical pain. A feeling of losing who you are. It can even cause people to develop negative stereotypes, almost like a defense mechanism against all the confusion.
Now, here's what's so fascinating. This whole confusing, stressful experience, it's not totally random. The research shows that it actually tends to follow a pretty predictable pattern, a journey with some very clear stages. And that journey has been mapped out into 4 main stages. You've got the honeymoon, then the crisis, followed by the adjustment, and finally, integration. Just knowing this roadmap exists is so helpful because it helps turn what feels like chaos into a process you can actually navigate.
Okay, so first up is the honeymoon stage. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. This is the fun part. You've just arrived, everything is new, everything is exciting, the food is incredible, the sights are amazing. You're basically looking at the new culture through rose-colored glasses, noticing all the great stuff.
But then, well, the honeymoon ends, and you hit the crisis stage. This is when those little differences that used to be so charming start to become really frustrating. You know, those constant little misunderstandings, like the one Don C.S. Ajahn had with the word kamu, they start to pile up. And this is when the anxiety and the loneliness can really set in. This right here is the shock. But if you can push through that crisis, you get to the adjustment stage. And this is where things start to click. You start to actually understand what's going on around you. You figure out the local customs, maybe you learn a few phrases, and you develop your own little tricks for getting by. The anxiety starts to fade, and you feel less like a total outsider.
And finally, you reach integration. This is the goal. This is where you can move through the new culture with real ease. You don't just put up with the differences anymore, you actually get them. You might even appreciate them. You feel comfortable, and you've kind of figured out how to be yourself in this new context.
So, okay, if this journey is so predictable, the big question is, how can we get through it better? Well, the study gives us some really clear strategies.
And it turns out there are some really practical things you can do. The research points to a few key tips. Try learning the language, even just a few words. Be patient with yourself. That's a big one. This takes time. A sense of humor is like your best friend. And don't be afraid to ask for help. It's also about finding that balance between staying in touch with home and really diving into the new community.
The study kind of frames the ultimate strategy around this really powerful idea from the Apostle Paul. Now, whatever your beliefs are, just think about the mindset here. It's basically a model for radical empathy. It's about being willing to step outside your own comfortable way of doing things, to meet people where they are, and to adapt yourself to build a real connection. That is the heart of getting past culture shock.
All right, let's bring this all back home. Because as the study points out, this whole experience, it's not just for people traveling to other countries. It's something a lot of us deal with, right here in our own lives.
I mean, think about it. Have you ever started a new job and the office culture felt totally alien? Or moved to a new city where you just didn't get the social rules? Well, according to the research, that's a form of culture shock too. Anytime we step into a new environment that has its own unwritten rules, we're going on a version of this exact same journey.
So I want to leave you with this question. Look around your own life. Whether it's with a new person at work, a neighbor from a different background, or heck, even a family member who sees the world differently. Where's the cultural gap you need to bridge? And what's one small step you could take to adapt, to connect, and to really start to understand?